The preseason All-Big 12 team is out. There are a few Utah Utes on it, but honestly, there should have been more. We're going to talk about who and also get you prepped for Big 12 Media Days this week on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time tuning into the show, make sure you like and subscribe. My name is JT Wistrcill, host of this show, and no, I'm not in my normal setup for those of you watching on video, and that's because I am in Frisco, Texas, the site of Big 12 Media Days, where I will be here Media Days next few days. Really looking forward to covering everything. We don't get to hear from Kyle Whittingham and the Utah players until Wednesday, but really even excited tomorrow to get to see what the day and everything will bring. On today's show, we're going to talk about the Big 12 all preseason, all conference teams voted on by the media, who what we think of those rankings, who should have been on there. Also, just talk about what to expect at Media Day from Utah. I'll also talk about Devin Dampier's award that he was gifted by the media. We'll touch on that in a moment. Really quick, though, do just want to say a thank you. And I do this every once in a while, but I honestly should do it even more. Thank you guys so much for just listening, watching, subscribing this show. I mean, getting to do this has genuinely been one of the highlights of my life. And I look forward to continuing to do it for a long time. But just like being here in Frisco, I mean, genuinely, I played my football games in the venue that I'll be covering Media Days in tomorrow. So I just can't say enough thank you. Like the fact that you all listen to the show, choose to subscribe. I'm not going to get a credential approved that this is a show watched by 5 people a day. So I just can't state enough. Like, thank you for making this show your first listen, wherever we fall in your listening order. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. And thanks for just hanging out with me, talking about my team. I just genuinely means the world to me. So just wanted to say that. And now let's talk some Utah football, what you all are actually here for too. So the Big 12 preseason media poll is out, and there's a couple Utah Utes on there. As I said, should have been more. Devin Dampier's newcomer of the year. We're talking about that in the second segment because that is massive. So as you guessed it, the Devin Dampier newcomer of the year, but the preseason all conference teams actually only have 2 Utah players on it. And you guessed it, Spencer Fano and Kyle Lomu. It's the 2 offensive linemen who are by most people's projections projected to be first round picks. I think those 2 deserve to be on here first. I have no issue with Devin Dampier not being the quarterback on this team. Sam Levitt is the quarterback. I mean, he's the Big 12 player of the year projected for a reason. And honestly, Sam Levitt is Sam Levitt. So like, I just, with what he did last year, I don't know how you put Dampier over him right now. Could Dampier play better than Levitt this year? Absolutely. But I have no issue with that, with him being there. And let's just go down the list too. Honestly, I mentioned you only have 2 Utah Utes on here. I feel like that's too low. Like, let's just go through and talk about, should there have been more? Next one you'd get to is running back. I think Wayshawn Parker has a chance to be a pretty special running back this season, but he has not done what Bryson Washington and Jaheim White have done at Baylor and West Virginia, respectively. So I have, once again, zero issue there. We don't even need to talk about the receiver position. Obviously, tight end, another one we don't need to hit on. Like Utah had the only players on offense that they should have had, in my opinion. Do I think there's a chance that Dampier, Parker could make their way on here? Heck, maybe Merriweather, the receiver they got transferred from Notre Dame at one point, most recently Cali. Maybe they end up on this list by the end of the year. Like, that is possible to me, absolutely. But I'm not going to sit here and predict that. So then we get to the all-conference defensive team, and there's no players for Utah. And it's like, okay, I've said that I think Utah is going to take a slight step back. I think they were the second best defense in the conference a year ago, but a slight step back is still a top 5 defense in this conference, and they absolutely deserve to have some guys selected on here. I will say right off the bat, for defensive line, I have zero issue with Utah not having anyone on the defensive line, especially when you look at like some of the guys that obviously Texas Tech has brought in and everything. We had that the crossover show with Chris Lovell, right, where we talked about like how good the offensive line for Utah versus defensive line for Texas Tech. Like, that could be 4 first-round picks going at one another, which would just be absolutely epic. But I do, when you get to the rest of this list, and I will say, like, these are very narrow margins, so I don't think it's like a glaring omission that these guys aren't on there, but I do think they absolutely have a case to be on there. I mean, first, if you're just going to start at linebacker, I know Lander Barton had a little bit of a down season last year, but there are just not a lot of linebackers as accomplished as he is with what he's helped this team get through. And he was playing hurt last year too. So I feel like by the end of this season, we'll be looking back on this list going, oh yeah, why was Lander Barton not a linebacker on here? I think Lander's going to have a monster year. I've been a big fan of his game since he first came to Utah. Every year he's impressed. A little bit of a step back last year for him in play, but was asked to do some different things with Karene Reed out too. So I really think Lander Barton's going to make his way on this list. He actually has, in my opinion, arguably the case for the biggest snub for Utah players. Although you could also say that for Smith Snowden. I mean, I think Smith is just going to be fantastic for Utah. I do expect them to use him more in the nickel this season as the slot corner guy. We'll be interested to actually talk to him this week about like, hey, where's he going to play out? What's going to happen? What's it going to be? So I'm very intrigued and interested to see about that. And yeah, this is going to be a situation that is interesting to watch and see is like, hey, how do these guys end up performing? Obviously, these preseason rankings don't mean anything. I mean, we know how many last year, how many Utah guys were in preseason this, preseason that, and obviously it didn't end up amounting to anything. But it's still just like, hey, I think these guys deserve their respect. And another one I would throw out there is Teo Johnson. And that's no disrespect to any of the DBs who were on here already too. I think Teo Johnson makes his way on this list. Do Lander Barton, Smith Snowden, Teo Johnson all get on this list? Maybe. I think they could, but I absolutely do believe one of them should have been on this list. This is just a Utah defense. They have such a history of being good, being excellent, and not to have a single guy on the all-conference team just doesn't, like I said, just doesn't seem right to me. I think Smith Snowden is the guy right away I look at and I just go, and I said that for Lander already too, right? So there's just multiple guys I look at on here and I go, hey, you should have found room for another Utah guy. Really excited that Fano and Lomu are together on that first team where they absolutely deserve to be, coming off the monster campaign they had a season ago, and the bar's been raised, and I think they're ready to match it. Really excited to get to talk to Spencer this week about a bevy of things just at Big 12 Media Day. I think that he's a guy that's ready for the stage and spotlight that comes with being someone. Spencer Fano was talked about some last year, but now it's like every game the broadcasters will have him circled as this is the guy who NFL scouts are buzzing about. PFF just had him as the 5th highest grade. They think he's the 5th best player in college football, which we'll do an episode on that at some point too, obviously, because that is just a remarkable praise being sent Fano's way. And I do think praise he absolutely deserves to, because he's a guy that has done amazing things while at Utah, and I think he's going to have a chance to do something amazing with this team too. And you know what else I should say? Like, as much as I'm complaining about like, hey, Utah should have this, Utah should have that on the preseason team with those defensive positions, Kyle Whittingham probably loves this, because Kyle Whittingham loves to be the underdog, and now they can spin it to those guys like, hey, they don't believe in you, and all of the things of that nature. So those guys are probably, the people in Utah probably like it that these guys are flying under the radar. It was kind of impossible for Fano and Lomu to do that, but everyone else was kind of like, okay, could this be Utah? Could be the other guy. It's a push. The push went to the other guys. So it's just extra added motivation for the Utah players. But yeah, I do feel like these teams should have included a few more Utah guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But even though Utah didn't get guys on, more than 2 guys on the all-conference preseason all-conference teams, they did get a guy who won a major award. Mentioned it was or nominated for right now to win in a major award. We're going to tell you who exactly that is and what that award is in one moment. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute that head of the ball game with a friend or family, maybe it's a game day, and you're just suddenly realizing you want to be in the stands? That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest and just fastest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. They've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of the Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for exciting upcoming MLB games too. Like, if you guys want to see what the Braves are going to do coming up, you can head over to Locked On MLB. You can head over to Game Time and get in on and be able to go in person too. 10% off exclusive zone deals for the FIFA World Cup are also a must check out too. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. All caps, no spaces, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets with that lowest price guaranteed when you use Game Time. The Big 12 newcomer of the year is Devin Dampier, at least according to this preseason poll, as voted on by the media. A lot of people are buzzing about Dampier, and I think the hype is justified. I think he's also the right pick to me as newcomer of the year. Look, awards are always going to be dominated by quarterbacks, and there is not a quarterback who transferred into the Big 12 off the top of my head, but yeah, I feel good in saying that as I go through everything. There's not a quarterback who transferred into the Big 12, so newcomer, that I think there's more expectations on than Devin Dampier. And there's also not a quarterback who transferred into the Big 12 as accomplished as Devin Dampier with what he did in New Mexico. Led the fourth best offense in the country last year. Threw for over 2,500 yards and rushed for over 1,000. The only player in college football not at a service academy school to accomplish said feat right there. So you look at what Devin Dampier's done, and it's deliver. And I do think he's going to. I'm a believer, man. I really think that he's going to have a special season with his Utah football squad. I think that he has all the makings of a star QB, and he's a guy too. Let's not forget, right? What did Devin Dampier do last season? That he is a guy who set the world on fire, and he is ready to make this jump from G4 to G5 to P4. Dampier Seasons, Wits Burner on X also talked about how, the college football ratings, they released their new system. Like, they're high on Devin Dampier too, right? He has a 91 in acceleration, 86 speed, 94 in accuracy, and 97 throw power. I know that he threw a lot of interceptions last year, a lot being 12. But you know what? Supporting cast was not fantastic on the outside. And the offensive line was not amazing, even though he was only sacked 4 times. Most of that was due to his elusive ability. So you say, okay, better secondary, and like, you're going to get better teammates around you, but you also be playing against better secondary. Like, yeah, that's absolutely true. That's something that is going to make life tougher on Devin Dampier. But he's a guy I think that's ready for it. I really believe that he's ready for the stage, and he's going to capitalize on it. He is going to have so many memorable moments. Let's not forget, he shined against P4 competition last year, or even just like teams that just got regulated to G5, basically. Looked good against Washington State overall, made plays against Arizona and Auburn a season ago, and I think he's going to have a chance to do it again this year. I'm really excited to see what Devin Dampier can do with this Utah team. Reuniting with Jason Beck, I think it's going to pay massive dividends for him too. So really looking forward to seeing how Devin Dampier clicks with this. And yeah, love that he's the newcomer of the year. Was once again not surprised to not see him get the top QB spot. I think if it wasn't for Levitt, it'd probably go to either Rocco Becht or Sawyer Robertson, as well too. So yeah, and defensive player of the year was Jacob Rodriguez, linebacker, Texas Tech. I'm fine with that. I think that's a good pick there. I mentioned offensive player being Levitt, but newcomer of the year, Devin Dampier. So glad that 3 Utah players were on these lists. Obviously wish it was more, but glad to see some of these guys get the love and recognition that I do believe that they deserve overall too. So I'm just really excited and really intrigued by what this Utah offense is going to be able to produce this year. But I know that people are low on them, but it just feels like the pieces are coming together. Lower on the offense and the defense, right? Those are the questions. But I just look at how good of an offensive coordinator I believe Jason Beck is based on what he did last year. He's going to have this awesome offensive line, has 5 starters back at his disposal. Even if they're fall a little short of expectations, as I've said they might, it's still going to be a really dang good unit. So you get all of that. And then what else do you get too? You get, when you're talking about this Utah team too, you get just an incredibly talented and impressive team along the offensive line with the quarterback, I think with the running back too, and pass catchers who just have to make a few plays. That's the weakness of this Utah team, right? Is the pass catching department, but they got enough pieces around to be able to get it done and make stuff happen too. So I'm looking forward to seeing Utah do exactly that, get stuff done and make it happen. It's going to be fun and exciting to see what they can do. But yeah, I love Devin Dampier getting the newcomer recognition. I feel like it's an award he absolutely deserves. I think he's ready to make this transition. I really think he's going to clean up the turnovers. I think he's going to turn a lot of heads with the plays he's making in Salt Lake City. And I'm looking forward to watching him put on an absolute show. Just like I'm looking forward to watching the show, it's going to be Big 12 Media Days, July 8th and 9th in Frisco, Texas at the Star, which is it's a really cool venue they got out here in Dallas, Texas. Jerry World, they call it a little bit too, just because this is Jerry Jones, like the Cowboys facility, the headquarters. It's an awesome area out here. So here's what to know about Media Day, though, just getting you guys prepped. Once again, Utah will not go until Wednesday, July 9th. Day 1, Arizona State, Baylor, BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, Iowa State, Kansas State, Texas Tech. Then day 2 is Arizona, Colorado, Houston, Kansas, Oklahoma State, TCU, West Virginia, and the best dang school in the Big 12, Utah. So going to day 1, like, what am I most curious about going into day 1 of Media Day? Well, number one, I will say, we get to hear from Brett Yormark at 10:30. I'm always interested in his opening press conference too. Usually goes for about 30 minutes. He'll make an opening statement, and then from there, it'll open up to questioning for the media. So that's always something that I enjoy hearing, is like, okay, what is he going to say? What's he going to talk about? What's on the commissioner's mind is always something that is that's interesting to see there too. So after Brett Yormark talks, then we get the head coaches will have their press conferences. Each one will go for 15 minutes, with Kalani Sitake actually being the first one, which in some ways you could argue it's probably the most anticipated of the coaches' press conferences, just because, look, he's going to dodge it very well, but there's just this massive like, hey, how do you handle this Jake Retzloff situation moving off it now? Like, what's your quarterback room like? How did this just do you what is it? What happened? I mean, obviously you have backups in place and everything for a reason, but a Big 12 contender just lost their starting quarterbacks. That's the biggest story. So you get Sitake right away. Joey McGuire is right after him. McGuire is a guy that, I mean, that Texas Tech team is really talented. I had Kevin Borba on my show last week. We talked about it. Like, right now, Texas Tech might be my pick to win the Big 12. Like, I think actually, I shouldn't even say they might be. They are. Like, at this exact moment, I would probably roll Texas Tech if I can't be Utah, because even Utah, right, you have to just buy into some of the pieces coming together. Tech, you technically have to do that, but the pieces that they have are just very impressive in part because of that NIL. Then we get Matt Campbell. Curious to just hear from him on how his team's going to bounce back from a disappointment. You know, there's a thing, the Super Bowl hangover people talk about that really hit the Atlanta Falcons really hard. I'm curious to hear from Matt Campbell how the Cyclones avoid the Big 12 championship game hangover. They had never made it in their history, and they got absolutely steamrolled when they did. So can that team bounce back? Curious to see. Speaking of bounce backs, Chris Kleiman, Utah and Oklahoma State were the two biggest disappointments in the Big 12. But Kansas State, being out of it by the time we got to the last week of the season, a lot of expectations on Avery Johnson, you know, especially with Will Howard. They kept saying they ran him out of town. So that's one that there's a lot riding on, there's a lot on Kansas State to be like, hey, you could have been one of the teams in this conference, a powerhouse, and obviously clearly not that. After that, we get Scott Satterfield from Cincinnati. He's a good coach. There's not a lot going on in Cincinnati. It's just kind of a steady program. I know last year they got some nice wins, but I'm not expecting much out of them this year. Granted, didn't expect much out of ASU last year, and we saw that all went down, right? Speaking of teams not expecting a ton out of is UCF. I do think Scott Frost was a good pick for head coach. I've seen a lot of people talk about that he's not. And so curious to see what he talks about building this team back up from the ground. And I do from just a very bad spot. We saw how bad that game was for UCF going against Utah in that the final game of the regular season for them. I like Scott Frost. I think they surprised a couple people this year, even if they're not going to be great. Baylor's not really sneaking up on people this year because Dave Aranda was nearly fired last year, but the team got it all together, and I do think he's a good coach. I think Baylor could have a really good year, so I'd be curious to hear what Dave Aranda has to say about his team. And obviously, everyone's chasing the top dog. ASU, Kenny Dillingham will be the last one to speak to the media from 120 to 135, so it'll be interesting to hear from Coach Dillingham what he thinks about this team, how he thinks that they are going to perform, and just, hey, are they ready for this? Are they ready to try to not just be hunters anymore, but the hunted? Because everyone's going to be looking at them. They've added a lot of talented players, so curious to see what we get to hear from them. Then we get the breakouts. That's where you'll kind of have your scrum, basically, where you can ask some, like there's the main coaches stage, but then at the same time from 4:30 to 3:45, and it's 4:30 and 3:15 the following day, the one that involves Utah, you get all of the coaches will have their little podiums and get like a smaller group. Basically, we'll talk to them. So probably the local media gets to speak to them a little bit more. All those being at 4:30 with the players starting at 3:15, and then you get coaches after that. So that's day one. Then you go back over to day two. Kyle Whittingham will be on the stage at 12:40 to 12:55, and this is PM Central Time. I should also mention too, being the big thing. Then the Utah players at 4:30 to 3:45. As for expectations for the Big 12 coaches that are speaking that day, Willie Fritz, I think Houston's on the rise a little bit, but also I should say on the rise. And I still think this is just such a tough conference. I'm curious of what that actually looks like. And, you know, speaking of teams that were at one point, I talked about Houston being on the rise. A team that at one point was obviously Oklahoma State, and how the mighty have fallen. Mike Gundy last year delivered quite some memorable press conference clips talking about Ollie Gordon. So we'll see what he has to say this year. You never really know with Mike Gundy. He's always a wild ride. And I'm just curious to see if they could bounce back. I mean, heck, he was almost fired. So we obviously won't be asked about that, but it's just, they got a lot to improve on, right? Rich Rod at West Virginia. He is a show. I mean, he is entertaining. He's already had some awesome quotes. So I'm very curious to see what he talks about trying to build the Mountaineers. I think year one's going to be a long year for the Mountaineers. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're really good, but I don't think it's going to be great this year. Then you get to Kansas, Lance Leipold. is the guy there that I think his team is. We talk about them a lot with Utah, right? Like teams that were bad in one-score games that I think are due for a big bounce back, especially Kansas became the giant slayer at the end of the year last year, beating a Colorado and Iowa State, and I think ASU as well, too, I want to say. So they went crazy at the end of the year. So curious to see what Coach Leipold has to say there. Sonny Dykes, he opens the season against Bill Belichick. So that's obviously intriguing. Week 1, made the national championship game a few years ago, and things have kind of gone to the wayside since. So another one that I'm very intrigued to hear from and see how he kind of views his team entering the season. Mentioned Witt coming up after that. I'm going to talk about Witt in a moment a little bit more. Brett Brennan already feels like he's on the hot seat crazy enough after just replacing Jed Fish. It just obviously last year was a disaster, and Noah Fafita is a really talented QB. So I get some of that. Curious to see what he has to say. And Deion Sanders is on here. I know he's had some health stuff, so I'm curious to see if he actually does end up speaking or if it's not like Pat Shurmur or someone basically, but that'd be something to keep an eye on is what's going on with Deion. How's his health and how's his team going to bounce back after losing the heart and soul of them, Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. And I know the offensive line is supposed to be better, and the transfer QB Salter is supposed to be decent, but that's still a lot. And then we get to hear from, then we have a lunch break. Then Kyle Whittingham will speak at 4:30 p.m. with players speaking at 3:45 p.m. Looking forward to hearing from all of those guys. So that'll be cool and interesting to hear from. And just speaking, now we've gotten to the Utah guys. So like, what am I most looking forward to? And we'll talk about this more in depth on tomorrow's show too. But Witt, like I talked about last night with Alex Napolis, it's got to be like, what is he going to give us a hint on a timeline? He mentioned not being here probably in 27. So is this last year, second to last year? Have you gone back on the 27 thing? Even though you said probably, you never said it was final. So how does all that shake out, right? Then from there, looking at just Witt, what will he talk about? I'm just curious to hear him talk about some of the positional stuff. I'm going to ask him about I would love to ask about the defensive line, the receivers. I know he hasn't seen those guys in a little bit outside of the offseason workouts, but curious to see what he'll say there. And as for the players themselves, I have a ton of questions I would love to ask the players. So Spencer Fano, how's he blocking out all the noise from the preseason hype? Devin Dampier, what's it been like since he got on campus, just being fast-tracked into the lead of this offense? Lander Barton, how does he plan on bouncing back? And what are his goals for the season? And Smith Snowden, another guy, how has he emerged more as leader in the DB room? So a lot to talk about and a lot to learn about this Utah football team, and we get to do it. Big 12 Media Days. Absolutely cannot wait. Let me know in the comments below. What do you guys want to learn at Big 12 Media Days? What are you hoping to discover and find out? And I'm just incredibly excited and intrigued, too, to see what we do learn from everyone. I think Brett Yormark's going to have some interesting comments. We barely talked about him, but he'll always have interesting comments about expansion and what the league's going to do. And he's just, whenever Brett Yormark speaks, there's usually something to be learned there and just heard about his strategy. So I'm excited for that, to get to hear what he's going to end up saying. And also just really excited and intrigued to see what all these guys have to say at Big 12 Media Day, because it always is a spectacle when these coaches get up there on the stage. So we are going to get to see all of it play out and unfold this week. And it's tomorrow, is day 1. And then we'll get to day 2, day 3, all of that coming up after. We'll have you covered on all of our Locked On shows. I know Jake Hatch is going to be there. Parker Ainsworth will be there. Drake Toll will be there too. So make sure you guys check out all the other shows we have. Locked On Cougars, BYU or Houston, Locked On Big 12, even Locked On College Football too, of course. And just thank you again for making Locked On Utes your first listen today. For your second listen, make sure to check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Being the most informed fan on the rapid changes to college football's landscape, you can find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast today. So once again, thank you guys so much for listening and supporting this show, allowing me to get to come out here to Frisco and get to cover Big 12 Media Days. I'm really excited to do it. I do everything I can to bring you guys some interviews and the best coverage I can to of it, and just excited to see what the next couple of days hold. So thank you again for listening in. Drop any questions and comments you guys have as well too, just of what you want to see at Media Day and what do you think about all the things we talked about today. So look forward to interacting with you guys more tomorrow as we get ready we react to day 1 of Big 12 Media Day and get ready for when Utah is going to speak. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. We hope we see you again tomorrow. As always, go Utes.